the mission to keep as many men on as many guns for as long as possible. We call him Doc. Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. And now your host, Aaron Chief Seaver.
Hey, welcome to Combat Vet Vision. This is a place where I get to talk about a lot of different things that happened to me, my military career, a lot of different things, being combat wounded 3 times in Iraq. Lucky to be alive. I have guests on here. This is where we give our opinions, our life story. These are their stories, and our stories, whatever they may be. And maybe they don't fit into society the way that you think they do, but they're integrating their way through it and trying to learn how to adapt and do some really cool things. And I work with some really awesome guys, and one of those guys is with me today. It's Dr. Ryan Rogers, United States Army vet, outstanding individual. He's been a friend of mine for quite some time, and I'm just really honored to have him on my show. So, with no further ado, Dr. Ryan Rogers, how you doing, brother?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here today. You're coming to us live from Camp Hope, or in Texas, correct?
Yeah.
Headquarters for the PTSD Foundation of America.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your career. You know, obviously you're at your desk right now with all this stuff. We'll get to that point too, but this is all encompassing of being a combat vet, dealing with a lot of different things, going through these processes, and now you're just living with these great opportunities, and you're also helping veterans in so many ways. And you got your doctorate this last year in 2021. We'll get into that too. I'd love to hear some stuff about that. So, yeah, talk about your career a little bit and your story, brother.
Yeah. If you would have asked me like 10 years ago, or maybe even less than that, or even said something like, being in the position that I am now and doing what I do, I would have said you were smoking something out of a glass pipe. I mean, just no joke, because I never envisioned myself like doing what I'm doing now. I loved everything about the military. I did. I loved everything. I mean, it was so simple. Other than the physical aspects of it, I mean, that was a butt kicker. But I mean, you just shut the heck up and did what you were told, and you got promoted like really quick. So it wasn't that bad. I love the camaraderie. I love jumping out of planes. I tell the stories like, I had 3 ambitions of what I wanted to do when I joined the military. One is I wanted to jump out of planes. 2 is I wanted to fight for my country, and 3rd is I wanted to be a drill instructor. And as the famous philosopher Meatloaf says, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So
That's right.
I'll take it. I really wanted to be a drill instructor, but the injuries and stuff I got while serving in Iraq really sealed the deal for me on that. And being kind of an individual that was like going through that and like having an idea of, hey, I plan on doing 20 plus years in the military, and I mean, I've got my next 14 to 15 years already pre-planned out. So if you have something already pre-planned out and you don't really have any cross-transferable job skills to the civilian sector, what do you do? That's like the difficult part, and it was in that, for me, it was in that transition. And it took me years and years to fully kind of transition out of it, because I still kept trying to grasp that and go back to that, because that was what I knew. That was what I was comfortable with. And that's what I thrived in. That's what I was like so successful in. It was very much a part of me and who I was as an individual. So it was really difficult for me to kind of detach from that identity that I had. And even then, there's still some nuances and things like that I still do, and still like, why do you respond that way? Well, something that's been ingrained in you for as long as it had. I mean, that's the stuff that sometimes it won't ever go away, like the vigilance and being, alert and always constantly watching people and aware in my surroundings. And these are some things that I don't ever want to go away. but they're things that have been trained in me and they've stuck with me throughout the years. So I guess if you want to like kind of, because I'll jump back and forth in a couple of different spots, kind of like within my story, kind of what brought me here to it, giving you little tidbits along the way. When I got out, I didn't have any cross transferable, you know, highly marketable civilian sector job skills, because it's like, what job did you do in the military? Well, let's see, candy coated or non-candy coated. So the non-candy coated version is I trained to kill people. Yeah, that will go over really well in a civilian interview. They'll be like, this guy's psycho. He's going to go postal on everyone in here. Do not hire him. He's a basket case waiting to happen. But it's like they don't. There's such a huge disconnect when it comes to like understanding really what happens. Then you want to watch Hollywood videos and everything else like that, and thinking that that's what the reality of it is. And to some degrees, maybe there is some accuracy to it, but it really doesn't show like what it does to the individual and how it affects them. So I had, before I joined the military, some really, really, really great job skill training from a third generation home builder, 2 years of formalized training. So I started my own construction company, did exceptionally well. I had 15 employees working in St. Louis. I mean, we were booked like 6 months out. It was crazy how great we were doing both residential and commercial remodels at the same time. It was very, very busy, and it was very productive. And then the economic downturn of 2008, 9, and 10 started kicking in, and it's crazy. Like all these things kind of happened like within months of each other. So the at that point in time in St. Louis was the largest Chrysler car manufacturing plant. I think it was like 500 acres or something ridiculous. I mean, it was massive. It was the largest car manufacturing plant in the United States. That closed down. And it wasn't just the workers who worked in the car manufacturing plant. It was the whole supply chain that was connected to it. So you're talking about displacing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of workers, in 1 week. And then a few months later, the Ford plant closed. That was also in St. Louis. So it hit like super hard economically. And at that point in time, my health started to tank like super, super hard. I had been going to the VA, and I had been seeing polytrauma neuropsychologists, and I don't know, like probably 7 or 8 different kind of specialists for my TBIs. I mean, just a lot of different specialists, and none of them were really talking to each other. And you would think it would be kind of common knowledge. You all work out of the same system. You're not going to like look at each other's notes and kind of cross compare. And unfortunately, that's not what happened. And we're taught to really, respect and honor authority, even sometimes when it affects us. And I've noticed it's very common for a lot of military veterans to not challenge like the doctors and doctors' orders and prescribing things, because they truly believe that these doctors have their best interest at heart. Well, I know I did. And at the height of it, I was on 22 different meds. I was on 7 narcotics and 3 psychotropics. It nearly killed me. It became so, my health and everything about me became so bad that literally my wife was preparing end of life arrangements for me because she thought I was going to die. And this is like I was 32, 33 at that point in time. So, I mean, I was still fairly young. I had, a house full of kids, and I'm a sole proprietor. And all of a sudden, now my other source of income is taken away. So I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And I'm struggling to still kind of make this change, make this transition. my coping mechanism was work. That's how I dealt with all the trauma and the issues that I had. I just buried it in work. Well, now that I don't have the other coping mechanism, and to some degrees, it was probably like a pretty positive coping mechanism compared to some of the others, but not when you're doing like 16 hours a day. That's not productive. That becomes destructive. Even too much of a good thing can be destructive. So I then get to the point where my life becomes a country song. Lose the house, lose the dog, lose the company, lose the health. I mean, lose everything. And it was in December, and we're preparing to literally, we called the bank and said, hey, we can't make the payments. We're not going to drag this out. And you can just come and take possession of the house because we can't make it. And but wait, there's more. So on the way back, so we have everything in our house loaded up in my truck and a 6x12 trailer that a friend of mine who I did a bunch of work for, he let us take, with the premise that once I got to California that I would sell it and then send in the money. So on the way from St. Louis to California, which is where my parents were, because we're not it's the only place we knew where we could go. And I had 5 kids at the time. I still only have 5 kids, by the way.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Yeah, you like added to the mixer.
That sounded like, wait, you have more than 5?
Right. I'm glad you clarified.
Like 5
thanks for that.
No, I only have 5 biological kids.
Yeah. So on your way.
So on the way to Nevada, like we checked the weather and everything, and it seemed great, seemed fine. There was nothing like out of the ordinary. But then in Wyoming, if you ever driven through Wyoming, it could snow just. It could be in the middle of July, and snow. It's just ridiculous. So we're going through Wyoming, and all of a sudden we hit this freak snowstorm. I mean, it was like whiteout conditions. And my wife was driving at the time, and the truck went over the bridge fine, but the trailer did not. The trailer came and literally whipped around and hit the truck and pushed the truck into the guardrail, and it almost totaled the truck. The guy who did the body repair says if it would have bent your frame just even a millimeter more, we would have had to total the whole truck. So it's like, dude, I can't catch a break. I mean, I'm sick. I just, even on the way back, like we lose the house where we've almost all of the stuff that was inside the trailer was ruined. Like all this keepsakes, like, yeah, my wife was just devastated. So she even got, some PTSD from it, throughout this whole process. It took her, I think 6 years or more to actually put up pictures on the wall. For 6 years, we didn't have any pictures or anything on the wall because she was afraid that if she put pictures on the wall, that meant that soon after we were going to be, forced to go somewhere else. So there was like so much trauma that happened like within her and the kids that I didn't realize because I was so wrapped up in my own craziness. Then I get, start seeing an acupuncturist who was helping, detox me from all those pills. And then I start seeing a counselor at the vet center. And this dude helped me out like tremendously. Like, yeah, he was such an awesome dude. He helped. Wes Shockley was his name. And he was such a great guy. I mean, he was a combat vet too as well. So he knew it, man. He knew it. He knew exactly, like almost like he was reading my mind. It was kind of crazy. But then he was walking me through that process and started to give me a lot of productive coping mechanisms to kind of be able to deal with it. And then even then just kind of identifying a couple of things that I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't like, I'm struggling in this. And they'd be like, oh, well, this is this. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. That's where this comes from. So he was really kind of helping putting missing pieces to a puzzle of my life that I just couldn't explain and I couldn't put together. So fast forward a little bit, I think about 4 or 5 years later, I'm doing like exceptionally well at this time. I'm in veteran services at this point in time. I kind of found it in a niche by doing a little work study for an EDD program in California, doing helping vets get jobs. I was like, I found my niche, like helping vets. This is my niche. This is I've had satisfaction with doing construction work, but this is a whole nother level of inner joy that it brings me. And I was still seeing Wes and talking to Wes. And then all of a sudden, there was a separation for a little while because I was really, really good. And I didn't really need to see him, much anymore. But then, something crazy happened. So I lost like 3 vets in 3 weeks' time. So the first guy I lost was one that I deployed with. The second guy I lost was one that I worked with. And the third one I lost was my counselor. You want to talk about sending me on a tailspin, like in a matter of like minutes and seconds, and like it's weird, kind of hard to explain, but it's like eternity and a moment wrapped up in one single breath. And like I'm going through so many different things in my mind, like all of the stuff that he taught me. Was it all a lie? Was it all BS? Was it all? It's like I need to know. I need to have answers to this. I have to have answers to these, because it's like if it doesn't work, then what hope do I have that I'm not going to be in his same shoes later? But really, just afterwards, and kind of through some inquiring of friends and talking with them and going over a couple of different things, it's really just, unfortunately, he didn't practice what he preached. Because those very same premises and things that he taught me, like it was crazy, because I put the safety net, and this is what he talked about, putting safety nets of people around you that you identify to them. And it takes some transparency. It takes some, things with you being vulnerable to other people and saying, hey, if you notice me acting this way, if you notice me doing this, if you notice me doing that, if you notice me doing this or this, then I need you to check me. I need you to say, hey, what's going on? You told me to check you when this happened. So now I'm fulfilling what you've asked me to do. So I had a lot of these protective measures put in place that he instituted and told me to do. And it was crazy, like how immediate those protective measures like came into action. I mean, it was within a couple of hours. So it was really, really quick. They caught wind. How they caught wind, I don't know, because I didn't say anything. But somehow they caught wind of that, and then immediately they called me. And then my dad was like, hey, let's go out to lunch. And my dad doesn't typically do that. So it's like these were all great things that happened because of the amazing things that he did. But right then and there, I made a vow, and I said, no longer can I just sit by and idly do nothing while I lose more brothers and sisters. I can't be an innocent bystander with all of these people who are killing themselves when I could do something about it. And I'm going to do something about it. And I will. And I'll continue to do something about it until the day I take my last breath.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of like what brought me here.
Yeah. How did you find out about Camp Hope, the PTSD Foundation of America, and all the things that it's doing across the United States, headquartered in Houston, Texas?
So it was kind of weird. I was working on my dissertation at the time. And
this is your doctorate, right? So
yeah.
you started working on this.
Airborne infantry grunt has a doctorate. Yes. Yeah. People call me the unicorn. Whatever. Working on my dissertation, suicidality among military members and veterans and the root causes. And my mentor, who's like all the staff and everyone on the school, yeah, obviously they're looking at it for scholastic merit, but they're all like super eager to learn more about what I discover within this process. And she's like, hey, why don't you go to, I heard about this conference in Nashville. It's a VA DOD suicide prevention conference. And there's going to be like all of the leaders of, suicide prevention in the veterans and active duty. They're going to be there and they're going to be present. I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. So went there and because I wasn't looking for a job, I wasn't looking for any of that. I put my information up on this app that we were all like communicated and stuff with, and I posted my question up on there, and I added some of my, history, pedigree, if you want to call it, like what's got me there, and my business experience and all that, just to kind of like establish a credibility, like, hey, it's not some Joe Schmo just trying to, ask questions, but no, this is for school. So more people are apt to engage in it, like if they know a little bit more about you. So I put that up there for that intent and purpose, because I'm really wanting to focus on this project, because I want, my whole thing was when I was talking with my mentors for this project, I'm like, look, I don't want, okay, great, you got this, you're now a doctor. This is like so special, you're like, I want this to actually add value and create and to make a change and to do something that does more than just sit on a digital shelf collecting digital dust. And great, you've got your doctor in front of your name. Whoopity doo. It has to do something. It has to have more value than just that. Because what value is that really? It's a great party trick. It's a great introduction tool. But other than that, like if what you're doing does not contribute and add value and enrich other people's lives, it's like, okay, what are you doing it for then? And then going back, she's like, okay, go to this. So I went, and all of a sudden I get this email or this message inside this app from one of the guys that works at the foundation. And it says, hey, we're looking for a guy or a person who has your unique skill set. Would you be interested in learning more about us as an organization? And here's kind of the crazy thing, like how this works. And just kind of like looking at it full circle. So like several years prior to this, like 4 or 5 years prior to this, I worked for another organization, and I literally started building out in my head and on paper, like what I would want the veterans organization to cover and to encompass. And like, lo and behold, I was actually building some of the things that were already at Camp Hope prior to me even knowing that Camp Hope even existed. And in fact, like one of the guys that used to work for me, he came, and toured the campus, and he goes, you remember that thing that you were working on way back when? That's what this is. Like, so that vision of yours has like started to come into fruition, and it's even developing more into that vision that you had many years ago. So it's just really cool to like see it, come full circle.
Yeah, no, that is pretty amazing. And what do you do at Camp Hope? What is your job title and position? I know, and you went to the suicide prevention. You really pushed for that through the Camp Hope, through all of our staff. We came and trained for this suicide prevention, suicide awareness, engagements. Um, Super awesome. I know you were adamant about that from the beginning. I remember meeting you when you were first kind of coming in to play, and you hit the road running, and it was awesome to see that.
Yeah,
So
so I think about
talk about
the,
all the cool things you do at camp. I mean, for the foundation.
so I am the president of the PTSD Foundation of America. I run the Camp Hope, the outreach in the corporate section of the PTSD Foundation of America. Um, Talking about that suicide awareness piece, that a lot of the stuff comes from Living Works, the Safe Talk and Assist. And I think now actually we have probably about 95% of our foundation are assist trained. So that's everyone. That's the receptionist, that's the admin assistant, that's the accountant, that's every single person that we have on staff has the potential to encounter a veteran who is suicidal. And one of the biggest things that a lot of these, people, you know, that keeps them, I guess, from actually asking the question or even saying anything is like, well, what happens if they say yes? What do I do? So we equip them to be able to walk them through that process and do an intervention and really kind of help that and empower them.
Yeah, that's been awesome. I mean, I just flew out there about 6 months ago and got that training, so it was really great. Thanks for making that happen. And you have some really awesome instructors too. So I mean, that was really one of those classes that you take and you have to physically be there because of the intensity and what it really represents. Um, and it was very well put together. And this is the golden standard across the world for that.
Yeah, I
It's
think
great.
Living Works is in 35, taught in 35 other countries. So
Wow.
it has a lot of data and stuff, backing up the validity of it. It's a great. It's why I'm a master trainer in assist. I believe in the program. I know it works. I've utilized it on several interventions, and so much so like that if it comes to it, and I have even that slightest inkling, I'm just going to come out and ask the question. Hey, you've talked about some of these things, and I'm just going to have to ask you a very serious question. Are you thinking about suicide?
Right.
And if they say no, great, perfect. If they say yes, then I know how to respond to that. And it's definitely something that I encourage anyone who has any kind of contact with vets or even any kind of vulnerable population for that matter to take the class. It's 100% worth it.
It definitely is. Hey, talk a little bit about how you've seen Camp Hope grow. Where do you see it going in the future? Um, some of the things that you really admire about the program, and how you feel like it can it's helping our veterans a little bit. Get into that a little bit.
So one of the things that I absolutely love about what we do is we legitimately address the whole person. And it's funny because when I talk to other, individuals who like are practicing clinicians or social workers or whatever, and I start listing all of the things that we do, or I say, hey, we're whole person, and they're like, okay, yeah, sure. And then I start listing all of the things that they do, and they're like, wow, you guys actually are whole person. She goes, we have theorized about a place like this for a very, very long time. We have theorized about, wouldn't it be great if something like this existed? And you guys exist. I'm like, yeah. And we're actually even working on improving what we currently have to really just get down and dirty and like start fine tuning a lot of the methodologies and things that we're using. Obviously our bread and butter, which we're never going to like, I guess three foundational kind of pieces. But our bread and butter, our most important thing is that it's peer to peer. Like there's nothing more powerful than being able to sit across the table. The vet sitting across the table from you is an individual who is struggling, who is not really sure why the meaning of life and why they're there. They just know that they're struggling, and for all intents and purposes, many of the individuals have given up on them and said, what hope do I have of being able to change, because I've tried all of these things and it seems like there's no hope for me. But now I immediately have like a sense of hope, because there's an individual who has walked many of my same steps, and in fact maybe even worn a boot or two of mine, and even have some of the same shirts I've got. But I can literally look across the table and say, look at how much better they're doing than what I currently am. So there is hope for me. The other part is that we're constantly improving. For me, it's not necessarily a quest for perfection, but I want to get as close as we can, because the reality of it is that one is too many. Losing one is too many. So we got to continually improve so that we keep finding more and we keep doing better, and we keep, getting these vets to not just stay alive, but we want them to thrive. Okay, so how do we work on getting them to thrive? How do we work on dealing with a lot of this trauma and some of the toxic culture that the military puts in? So kind of, I'll switch gears here with you a little bit on this, because this is part of like what we undoing. We're actually reprogramming, a lot of the military members that does not happen inside the military, and there's obvious reasons why. So this kind of goes back into my dissertation and what I study within that. So operant conditioning, behaviorism, it happens inside the military, and that's a part of it. The basic premise for behaviorism is positive reinforcement for positive things and negative reinforcement for negative things. So in the military, like especially in basic training, they're breaking you down like mentally, physically, everything. Why? Because they want to get rid of that civilian mindset and teach you and integrate you into a military member and mindset, thinking, acting, knowing, doing, being, and reacting as how the military wants you. Essentially, it's brainwashing. A lot of people don't like using that word, but that's exactly what it is. They're teaching you how to become a military member. For a lot of intents and purposes inside the military, what is taught is literally life-saving skills inside that environment. But oftentimes, anything outside of that environment, what was once life-saving, now becomes detrimental to an individual's life. Because in this environment, it's the suck it up and drive on mentality. And in a combat zone, in a combat environment, that could literally mean the difference between you surviving or dying. So it's constantly drilled and it's constantly instilled, like, because they need you to reach down deep and, whatever it is that you've had, mind over matter, mind over physical body, just working and constantly drilling that in. But also within that, though, too, is there's a part within that the military culture that shuns any type of help-seeking behavior, because you have what's heightened. What's heightened is the suck it up and drive on. You should be able to deal with it. And even then, a lot of the vets, as they transition out, still have that same mindset. Like, look, I was at the pinnacle of physical. I was at the pinnacle of this. Like I was at the top of my game. Like the top 0.001% of the United States population has ever gone through this, so on and so forth. So why can't I deal with what I'm facing? I should be able to suck this up and drive on, but I can't. Like I can't process this. I can't get through this. What is wrong with me? So we're very direct. We're very driven. So oftentimes we get to the point to be like, well, okay, what do I gotta do? Doesn't seem like there's any issue for me. So I'll put the gun in my mouth, I'll pull the trigger, end it. It seems kind of crass, but that's the reality to it. Crass or not, that's some of these guys that they're facing that. It's like, I don't know how to get out of that military mindset, because it becomes, here's the other part too. The military itself is designed to meet 4 out of the 5 of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the first one is like your basic needs. And let me look it up real quick, because I think it's worth kind of defining and walking through this.
Yeah, it's that's always a unique picture. The basic needs: food, water, and shelter.
So the first need on the bottom is the physiological. It's the food, water, and rest. The second is safety needs, so security and safety. The third is belongingness and love, like relationships, friends. And the esteem needs is prestige and feeling of accomplishment. So I've literally those are the first 4 pillars in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And have any of those 4 are not present within the military design.
No, they're all there.
They're all there. And it's purposely designed to meet those 4. Now, the 5th is self-actualization. That's on an individual. But those first 4 needs are provided inside the military environment. And it's like wrapped up inside that, what it is. And that's why a lot of us, when we transition out, we want that, because we're missing pieces of this puzzle. So the transition is so much more than just a job transition. Because if let's say I'm an iron worker or whatever, right? If I transition from a job as an iron worker in Nebraska to, say, Texas, I'm keeping the same job. I maybe, there may be some issues with finding a place or whatever, but I keep the same job. I keep all of that. The difference that oftentimes happens within the military is, okay, you've literally lost your job, you've lost your medical insurance, you've lost all of those first 4 hierarchy of needs that is wrapped up in that. So the military itself becomes an environment that is all encompassing and all providing. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about all of that. So when you transition out, if you don't have all of those things lined up and set in place, then things get out of place, because you're trying to find that first need, the physiological need. Like, I've got water, warmth, and a place to rest my head, and then so coupled with Clayton's ERG model, it means that in order for me to, say, progress to the safety needs, the physiological has to be met first. So if I'm not taking all of these things back, then I'm going to be stuck at the physiological. And that's where my mind is going to be constantly. So it's crazy how well put together the military is, but then that transition out, just a lot of us flounder. And there's the other part too. I think a lot of them flounder because of the simple fact you have individuals who, I have to play like the devil's advocate here, because it's not the military's responsibility to teach you how to be a civilian. And in fact, do you really want the military to teach you how to be a civilian? It's kind of backwards. That's not what they're good at. what they're good at is teaching you how to be a military member, whether it's Airmen, Navy, Marines, or Army, and then even this new branch.
Space Force. Yeah. Yep. Got to throw
Um,
that in the mix.
yeah.
And Coast Guard. No, I get it. I get it.
So,
Hey, and really, Camp Hope provides this. When you say all encompassing, it breaks you back into, you are going to be taken care of while you're at Camp Hope. You're going to be going through a lot of different classes to benefit you. You're going to have, maybe you're going to find your self-worth, and this is happening, I think, to a lot of our peer-to-peer mentors, right? They come in, they've gone through the program, and now they have a new purpose. I mean, your purpose now is to still help out veterans. Mine is to, there's so much purpose that comes from having Camp Hope, having this backup program where if I need to send somebody somewhere, I have a place. There's a place where somebody can go and get that help. But on top of that, you're helping them transition too, because you're giving them the tools necessary for, to come off drugs, alcohol, whatever they're dealing with, into a better quality of life. And when you start talking about that, it's like, what's your passion in life, and where are you going to go? Talk a little bit about that. That transition out of Camp Hope ends up being a pretty good transition if they take that route. They have job opportunities thrown at them left and right. There's other things that come you guys' way. I know I use a lot of the resources that aren't necessarily Camp Hope, because you've made that statement too. We do this thing super awesome, this peer-to-peer mentor side of things. But when you talk about all encompassing, there's some really good people that we know that help these guys get jobs, resume building, all these other things that are out there that we utilize for those resources that really make these guys, gives them some opportunities.
for sure. And you caught up on something, because I went off on a tangent. Be like, we off in left field. So I appreciate you picking up that fly ball.
Hey, we got about 3 minutes left. So fill it all in. And, if somebody needs to get a hold of you, fill that into your last comments too.
Whatever a veteran utilizes a destructive coping mechanism to be able to deal with some of the things that they faced, that's exactly what we're going to deal with. And that's one of the things that makes us very different from a lot of these other organizations, because it's not a time-based type of interaction. It's a detail and a progress-based interaction. So we're going to explore it, and we're going to work through it, however long that takes, the veteran and their family. So it's a very unique approach, and there are several different ways to get a hold of us. On our website is www.ptsdusa.org, and then we have
that is in the show notes, just so everybody knows. Check out the show notes below. All that information is there as well. Crisis line as well.
The combat trauma crisis line is in there too as well. But if you're interested in kind of knowing more about us, like, we'll connect with you and give you all the information that you need. We are in the business of saving lives, and we are very, very good at what we do.
Well, thanks, Dr. Ryan Rogers. I appreciate you. As a mentor, as a guy that I can reach out to. I mean, I've even spent some time talking to you about issues that pop up in my mind that I take personal. Helping out vets, sometimes we overextend ourselves, and it just kind of becomes a sad state in our mind for a little bit. But listening to you, I know I reached out to you just recently on that, getting some feedback. But you got to have this battle buddy program. You got to have this really cool thing, and it's a camaraderie piece too. There's a lot to it that gives you this sense of belonging, and it's really an awesome deal. And thanks for everything you do. 2021, you got your doctorate. Now you're sitting at the table with this doctorate thing. I think it's pretty cool that you're using it for what you're using it for, obviously to help veterans, and you did your dissertation on that. So outstanding. Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Any last words? All right.
It's like a labor of love, but it's like the 30 hours in induced labor, and you need a cesarean at the end of it. But look what comes out of it. I mean, that's the beauty.
Yeah, matter of fact, this podcast that I do wouldn't be as integrated into what this is all about if it wasn't for the PTSD Foundation of America. So I mean, there's just every little piece of this is an outreach piece to this whole deal. So
I mean,
thanks, Ryan.
yeah, we can't do enough. I mean, what is too much?
Yeah, no, that's always the question. And you also, that's a self-induced problem and solution. So you always got to have like, what can you handle? And you gotta weigh that out too. But thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate you. Strength and honor. Hey, this is Aaron Siebert, retired Navy chief. Lucky to be alive after being hit with a mortar round April 2006. This is my show, Combat Vet Vision. This is designed to help the combat vet, educate the public, give some chances to somebody that otherwise might not have it. Till next time, strength and honor. Out.